today on the show we have Katherine Kirkinis. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So, tell us about yourself.
Sure. So I'm a psychologist. It's actually Dr. Katherine Kirkinis.
Oh, sorry. I had it in my notes too, and I just skipped over it.
No, it's one of the fun things about getting that degree is you get to add
you got to
it
put
on.
people in their place.
So I'm a psychologist, and I own a company called Wanderlust Careers, which is a vocational psychology firm where we basically help people to figure out what it is that they want to do with their life. And we do a lot of that through psychological assessment, career coaching, and then we help them to actually get to what it is that they want and make their lives better.
That's awesome. I'm very excited to dig into that with you.
Yeah.
I obviously am in the career coaching world, but I also have a huge passion for mental health and neuroscience and all that stuff. So this is a very unique, fun conversation that I think we can have. But I'd love to take it back and just get to know you a little bit. So what ultimately made you want to pursue psychotherapy, psychology in the first place?
That's a good question. So maybe I'm unique in this way, but from a young age, I think I was kind of thinking about reverse engineering my life. Like, what do I want my life to be like when I'm older, which I think a lot of young people don't think about. I think this was just one of my weird quirks or talents. So from a young age, I was thinking about that, thinking about being a woman, thinking about wanting to have kids. And as I was going through different ideas of what I wanted to do with my career, I wanted something that would allow me to have a family and to take time off from work and be able to return to work at a later date, if that was my idea of what a working parent was at the time. Obviously, it's much more nuanced than that. But so I wanted to come up with something that I could leave and then return to without having lost experience or lost time. So when I was thinking about different ideas, I'd also gone to therapy as a young person, like age 14 or 15, and it was a really positive experience. So it started pushing me in that direction of like, okay, I think this is something that I could do, that I'd like to do, that would support this lifestyle idea that I have for myself. So that's what got it all started.
That's awesome. And did you know, that's awesome self-awareness, that I wish every kid would look back and be like, I wish I was thinking about those questions.
Yeah.
Not just trying to find the funnest school to go to or whatnot. But so that's really interesting because were you thinking about specifically owning a practice at the time too, and that being the freedom driver?
No.
Because I wouldn't assume, maybe I'm wrong, but I wouldn't assume the average psychologist would get good work-life balance necessarily.
No, I was at that age. I was also super creative, and my mom's an artist, so I was thinking about, maybe I want to be like in fashion, or maybe doing something with art or design. So I had like these three things, like fashion, art history I really liked, and then psychology. So I was holding those for a little bit of time, and then eventually the lifestyle piece is what pushed me towards psychology initially.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
that's cool. So in even just rereading your website before we had this conversation, you talk, and in our first conversation you mentioned this, a lot of the way you work in your company, or at least the frame you take, is it seems that you've stumbled into this because initially you're trying to support people with happiness and self-identity, and ultimately it seems, and I'd love for you to elaborate more on this, but it seems like that actually unfolded in the career stuff, almost happened on accident as a result of trying to help people with more core mental health, more or less.
Exactly. Yeah. So I went to college, I had some major changes, but eventually settled on psychology. And then when I graduated, I worked for a little while, actually as a personal assistant. And then I went to get a master's degree while I was working. So I did those things simultaneously. And upon getting my master's degree, you're actually able to practice. So it was a master's degree in mental health counseling from Columbia. So I started practicing, and I was super interested in identity, like loved this whole idea of gender identity. I was working with transgender kids for a while, which was pretty cool. Very interested in racial identity, sexual orientation, like all the identity stuff. That was just what really excited me about mental health. So I set up a practice in New York City, started working with people kind of around my same age. I think I was like 26, 27 at the time. And it's so interesting. I'd be working with, these these gender nonconforming people, people who are trying to figure out their sexual orientation. I'm asking them questions about their identity, like, tell me about who you are, like, let's dig in. And they'd start talking about their careers. And I was like, what is going on here? Why is everyone, I'm trying to talk about this other thing, but when you ask people about identity, they often, at least in New York City, talk about career.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I have follow-up questions, but the way you articulated that definitely clicks. That's so true. At a party, when you introduce yourself, the second question after, like, where are you from, is what do you do?
In some cities, yes.
Yeah, that's true. In some cities, at least in a lot of Western American cities are like that. So that makes a ton of sense. So what was it about identity that you really hooked onto as, like, this is the thing I want to pursue? Or, like, why do you think it matters so much that you gravitated towards it?
That's a great question. I've never actually thought about that. I don't know. I think it's just something about the human experience. And I think that it's just, everyone's so different and everyone has so many different identities that make them who they are. And when you're struggling with one of them, like gender or sexual orientation, or, there's certain identities that you kind of discover as you age. I think that process was really interesting to me, and probably the reason that I find career identity so interesting, because it's something that you're finding about yourself. It's in there, or I guess you should say your true career identity, or what you really enjoy doing. It's in there. And if you can help someone figure out how to do that every day and make money from doing it, I mean, that's the
cool.
dream.
Yeah. As I was prepping for this, I was like, oh, this is really interesting to talk about, because it's interesting the way you're describing identity in that work. It does seem like you're describing an uncovering of things, of like, okay, like, it's in you, let's just see what's there. And I feel like the way I've related to the concept of identity in a self-development lens, or even just, like, unpacking the past of my life and try to make my life a more enjoyable experience doing a lot of similar stuff, is also a concept of, oh, you can also manufacture a new identity. Yeah. And I think both of those things are very interesting, and at least in my own life, I found a lot more peace and happiness once I was conscious of what identity I was choosing, or became conscious of an identity that was truly aligned for me.
Exactly.
And I do feel like that is a very, very fundamental piece, that without that, you might even be super successful and be a billionaire, but then be depressed and have a bunch of problems. And I'd bet money that it probably ties back to some sort of identity alignment.
Yeah, I think it's kind of two things at once, right? It's about discovering what's already there, but it's also about creating a life. So I think you can hold both of those things at the same time.
That's cool. So when you're working with people, or just your overall take on this concept of identity, and it sounds like maybe even in this scenario it's linear, one and then the other, where it's really just those core things of, who are you, uncovering things, and then helping people identify which of those things are, like, that's you, that's your sexuality, your how you identify, but then also where's the room to tweak and shift some identity to better support your path forward. I think it's both. I think you, like, even if you take my example, right, like, I am this super creative person who could have gone into fashion, for example, but I also wanted to create and build a certain lifestyle. And when I started putting my toes in the fashion world, I was like, oh, like, I don't know, like, my thing was at the time is I wanted to do something to, like, make people's lives better. And I do think fashion makes people's lives better in some ways, but I wanted to, like, really, like, help people live a better life. And I felt like the best way to do that was something that was a little bit more person to person. So that's just an example of, like, two things. So I still use my creativity in my work, but just in a very different way. And I felt like I could hit more of those targets in the psychology field for me. Yeah, that's interesting. Do you ever see, and I'm curious if this is something that's baked into your current practice or how you think about it, but even just, as we were even talking before we started recording, of people who they're talking about career things, and you notice some interesting patterns, like, oh, you get fired from every job. In a lot of ways, that could be a more identity-driven thing. Like, if you see yourself, my identity is someone who's not successful, or not, like, or maybe based on the way I grew up in the home environment I grew up in, I'm not able to have that life, or I'm not able to like really find fulfillment in my work.
Yeah, there's a
and
lot
helping
of
people
that.
shift those type of identity relationships too.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of our big things at our organization, one of our like values or beliefs is like career is a mental health issue, and so much of the stuff that's going on in career has to do with like self-limiting beliefs and the influences around you. So for example, like one of the exercises we do with clients in career coaching is thinking about the people who are closest to you and what they do for work. You know, who are the people that are influencing you? And we've had some people come in, and no one in my family has ever graduated from college, right? So like it's not even in their head that they might want to go to med school, right? They don't even know anyone who's gone to med school. So like they have a limitation just based on who's around them. Or on the other side, someone comes from a family of lawyers. Everyone's a lawyer. So they only see like that path for themselves, and the idea of stepping outside of that is so difficult. So you really have to look at that realm of influence.
It's almost like everyone might have wanted their parent to sit down and have that conversation with them at some point in time, and if they didn't get that opportunity, now it's their opportunity to have someone believe in them and not even tell them go do this, but at least helping them feel safe in the possibility of expressing that. Or at least
to just look at the box that you've put yourself in, and then explore like what stepping outside of that might feel like, you know, what kind of friction might that cause in your realm of influence. What might they say, and how do you kind of move beyond that?
I like that. So if someone's listening right now, because I feel like a lot of this stuff, it's like I imagine most people wouldn't consider career to be a mental health issue. And even if they did, it would probably go largely undiagnosed because it's just the norm. I remember for me, when I was working my first corporate job, I'd come into work on a Monday and I noticed everyone in the office, their answer of how they're doing and how they're feeling depended on if it was closer to Monday or Friday. It was Monday, they were sad, and it's Monday, and it's like, it's Friday, and like, that's no way, in my opinion, I knew right away, like, that is no way to live. This is not my long-term thing. But all that said, there's probably people listening, and it might be going unconscious for them that they're like, no, this is just how work should be. Like, work just is not enjoyable, or work is not a positive relationship. So what are either some symptoms or ways that people, like, how can someone recognize in themselves if this is something they might want to even just look at a little bit deeper at in their own life?
Yeah, I mean, another reason we say career is a mental health issue is because what we found is that when someone's unhappy in their career, it impacts other parts of their lives. You know, they come home from work, you know, they're so exhausted, they're so drained, they're not able to connect with their partner if they have one, or their kids if they have one. A lot of people, they work so much that they don't have time for a social life. They don't have time to spend with their friends. They don't have time to do their hobbies. Some people are commuting to work. You know, they commute something like an hour a day on average for a lot of people. They work their 7 or 8 hours at work. They commute again to get back. They only have time to eat, shower, go to sleep. You know, it becomes a health issue. People aren't able to exercise. They're not able to, you know. So it becomes a mental health issue because of the lifestyle stuff, but also what it is you're doing all day. We've had people who come in and they're working in an area that they feel like not good about. You know, maybe it's they're marketing a product that they don't think is helping anyone. Or they're creating, we had someone recently who was creating like AI systems that they felt like they didn't want to be a part of. So it can also be a mental health drain in that way.
Yeah. I like that a lot. Yeah, I think we live in a really cool time. You know, it may not feel this way for everyone, but we are for sure in this world where if you actually believe that, if you set a North Star of what I want my lifestyle design to look like, there's so many more possibilities now than there were even 5 or 10 years ago to make that stuff happen. So while it's hard to get that self-awareness, maybe give yourself permission to do it and then also figure it out, it's never been more doable. Like, you don't, for almost anything that you could want, I would love to be remote, I would love to have time to work out or spend more time with my growing family or whatever. If people can get to that point where they are aligned internally, that they feel like they can make it happen.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people don't even think that it's an opportunity for them to like have a life that they love. I think a lot of people do grow up with this idea of like work is called work for a reason. Like, it's not supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be draining.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's what they saw a parent or caregiver doing.
Yeah.
So I've seen a lot of that. Like, people don't even think about making a change because they, A, don't think it's possible, B, don't think they deserve it or they should have it. And then other people grow up in a context where everyone around them has followed their hearts and done the type of work that is really meaningful to them and have been able to make a living doing that. So it really depends a lot on like psychology and childhood and how you grew up and what you've seen.
100%. Yeah, that's really cool to then break that pattern or break at least like the sleepwalking nature of that pattern. Like, okay, maybe I inherited these beliefs, but
that's
now I
what's
actually
so
get
hard.
to choose.
It's like a psychology issue.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes it really deep and important work.
Yeah.
Because it's so hard to like A, see it, and then B, break out of it. It requires a lot of assistance.
Yeah.
And I think at least in our organization, we see a lot of people come in and they aren't aware of like how deep some of this stuff is. You know, they're like, okay, I want to make a change. I don't know what that change is. And we're like, okay, well, we can help you figure out what a good career path for you would be based on, you know, all of these variables that we look at. And then we'll give them, you know, their results and they'll see, okay, great. Like, there's some really great options on here. I think I'd like to pursue one of these, but then they get stuck.
Yep.
Like, God, I don't know. Like, how do I tell my partner that I'm going to change careers?
Right.
You know, how do I work all day at my job and then do some like moonlighting, learning a new skill, right? That's where a lot of people start to feel stressed and stuck. And I think that's why like working with someone is really helpful, because they'll help you see around all of that.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. I feel like that's exactly why health coaching is such a massive industry, because every piece of knowledge to get fit is on the internet and everyone has access to it for free, but it's the accountability piece, and even that is identity. Like, am I going to be the person who does what I got to do to be healthy?
Yeah, that's actually, I find that really interesting too, like the identity piece around health and like, but I'm the guy who likes to party and drink beer. And it's like, if you want to make a health change, and then it's like, who am I if I'm not that guy anymore?
What will people say when I go to the party? Like, I'm a sales guy, and if I take a client out and get water,
exactly.
What does that mean?
It's all kind of the same idea.
Yeah, I think that is some of the most powerful stuff for really any area of life.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, very cool. Fun random question that I just thought of. So, if you could wave a magic wand, like, do you think this should all this stuff, like, would you love to see this stuff in schools? Like, do you feel like this is something developmental that I feel like we should all have that baked in, and we would really benefit from that in some form of curriculum, whether it be in like high school or...
I think a lot of high schools do some form of this.
That's good. I don't think I got it.
I mean, well, they do. By some form of it, I mean, like, in high school, they often give kids like an interest inventory, which is like one dimension that is important for career decision making. But I always say, like, we should treat career decision making like a psychological assessment, which measures you from like multiple domains, right? Interest is one slice of the pie, but also like values is another slice. How much money you want to make is another slice.
Totally.
Your
valid
personality is another. Like, there's so many pieces of the pie, but what they do in high school is they'll give you an interest inventory, so one slice of the pie, and then they'll give you some career options, but it's usually not that helpful because they're not taking into consideration anything else about this person.
Yeah. So,
like, you know, I'll do it and they'll be like, okay, like, you should be a farmer. And I'm like, okay, well, I live in New York City, so that'll be interesting to like get, and that, I don't think that supports like, you know, the kind of life that I think that I want for myself. Like, yes, I find gardens interesting, but, you know, like, it doesn't go beyond that.
That actually just surfaced such a vivid memory, and this was, I definitely took a decent amount of those like assessments back in the day, and probably when I was honestly too young, or just like a silly activity to do. But no joke, I was probably in like 4th or 5th grade when I took one of these, and the number one job title that came back was bellhop. That I should be a bellhop.
And you're super sociable, so.
Yeah, I was like, Mom, I know what I'm going to do if I'm going to be a bellhop.
Funny. But yeah, like, maybe it picked up on like that you like face-to-face conversations or something like that.
Yeah, so I do think that's valid, that multi-dimensional.
So a lot of people will come into our company and they'll be like, yeah, well, I've taken a career test before. And I'm like, I can guarantee you it was a unidimensional test measuring one aspect of you and was not like a full integrative assessment where they're looking at you from all the dimensions that matter and putting it all together and figuring out what you should do from there.
Yeah.
So they are doing it with kids that are younger, which I think is a good start. But I think that, like you said before, like they're kind of too young maybe to even put them in a direction. But I think when you're in college, I think is a really good time to do it when you're choosing a major. And I would love to see a little bit more of that from universities, like actually helping people with some type of an assessment or something like that, more so than the standard. I think the standard career offices at universities are more for helping people get jobs, but I've also gotten feedback that they haven't been that helpful. So
yeah, for sure. And I'd imagine there's something to be said about, even if there's an assessment, I feel like the common thread of what we've discussed so far is it's so important for it to be an ongoing relationship thing. It's like, sure, you might have a North Star, but to actually implement and find success, you probably need a more long-term container curriculum program, accountability support that you're probably not going to get if you just take the assessment. There's a small percentage of the population that's a self-starter, and it's like, cool. Even if I have the perfect assessment, I'm going to go make it happen, but that's probably like 7% of people.
Yeah, and I don't know, I've been trying to figure this out, and as I've approached universities and kind of chatted with them about it, I don't know if this is true or not, but I get this impression that like most of the investment from a university is in like marketing to get people into their university. And then once they're in, it seems like they care a lot less about what happens. They are businesses. Yeah. Right? So I get that impression that like they put a lot of money into certain areas and it's not so much about the development of the student once they're there. It's more like, okay, we got our money. Yeah. Now let's move on. They don't put a lot into the career centers. They don't put a lot into alumni events unless it's for donations. Yeah. You know, it's very much a business. Yeah, and I think we forget that.
Yeah. My brain if I'm putting myself in their leadership shoes, I'm probably like, well, we got to just get our placement rates up. It's like, doesn't matter what job they're getting. We got to say we have an 87% placement rate. Figure out happiness later. But exactly. Yeah, that does make a lot of sense that would be the way it operates.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And maybe that's the cool opportunity with technology is the cost can come down on those things. It can be accessible to more people.
That'd be great.
Yeah, super cool. So I would love to, well, actually, first and foremost, I do want to get into some of the nuts and bolts and unique things you do and help people understand like some of these mechanisms that can help them get that clarity. But we kind of jumped right in, so I'd love for you to explain a little bit more about Wanderlust and like what type of people you support and what you do for those people.
Yeah, so we support people at different stages of their career journey. So on the younger end, we support usually people who've already gotten into college and are trying to choose a major. I'd say that's like a core group that is utilizing our services to answer the question of like basically what the hell am I supposed to do with my life and my career? And a major choice is kind of the starting point of that. And I'll hit more on that in a minute. The other group of people that we see are mid-career professionals, so people who are kind of like late 20s to mid-30s, even early 40s. That group has already been working for some time, and they have found themselves to be miserable in whatever career that they've chosen. And they're coming to us saying, like, I cannot do this anymore. I cannot do this anymore. My mental health is suffering. I've tried to go to therapy. Like, we figured out that the issue is my job. I need help. And I have no idea what I'd like to be doing. And with those people, we do very similar work that we do to the younger people, which is trying to figure out first with some type of a psychological assessment, what would be a good fit for you? And then through more qualitative work with them, where did things go wrong? Like, how did you end up in finance? Like, we're looking at your assessment, like, this is not the right field for you based on what I can see. You're super social, you're super creative, like you've got a very artsy profile. How the hell did you end up in finance? And then we find out, well, my dad was in finance and he helped me get my first internship, and he said he'd only pay for college if I majored in business. And then we start to get the whole story, right? And then it gets more complicated. I'm used to earning this much money. I can't like go do something creative. That's insane, you know? And then that's where a lot of the coaching comes in of like, okay, well, there are creative people who make a lot of money. Let's talk about what some of those careers are, and how you could start to get into that. And here's where the money lives in the creative world, and starting to kind of provide some education around that stuff. And what's so interesting with the mid-career professionals is it always comes back to college. Why did you choose that major? Why did you choose that university? 98% of people will say, oh, I don't know. It just, the people that we see in our practice, I don't know, I just picked it. Or I had to graduate, and this is the closest thing that I could come up with to graduate on time. And even worse are the first jobs and internships people choose. Oh, you did your first job at a veterinary hospital. What made you choose that? Oh, they're the first people who answered me. I'm like, okay. And now you've been working with animals for like 10 years and you don't even like, it's not even that interesting to you, you know?
Yeah. So wild. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it seems like it all just feeds into itself, because if you had that awareness that I could do something else and I have the agency to just do something, you probably would. So it's, people are living on autopilot in that way of, like, what do you think? You may or may not actually know, but it is just so interesting. What do you think is going through these people's brains? Because it's like, are they just unconscious and it's just not a thought, like a thought pattern they have, and they're just,
I think it's
kind of
actually
stuck on autopilot?
More like panic. I think young people are like, I gotta pick something. So many college grads are just like, I just need a job. Yeah. Or their parents are pressuring them, just get a job, we can't support you anymore. So they just take the first job and they don't put a lot of intentionality into it. They just take something, which makes sense. Yeah. But then what happens is your resume starts, hey, I got a job in marketing. Your next job's going to be probably in marketing. Mm-hmm. 10 years later, you'll probably be in. So that first job really matters a lot, but a lot of people don't think about it as a big decision. They're just like, whatever, I'll change later.
I don't want to have to go move back in with mom and dad.
And I think that that's why most of our clients are people who've been working a while and kind of realize the pain of those decisions, and fewer clients are the younger ones who are being forward thinking about their major, because I think they're kind of in that same position of like, whatever, I just need to graduate, whatever, I just need a job. Yeah. And they haven't felt the pain of being in a career that you hate. And it's those later folks that are coming to us because they have felt it.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I think that's a good cautionary tale for those listening who, or just anyone who can, if you can have that awareness, you feel that feeling in your gut, like, maybe I'll just ignore this and it'll go away. It's probably very rare that it does. And maybe some people do grow in love with their career as it develops, and they become really good at something, and that alone becomes a fulfilling mechanism. But
yeah, it's funny. I think I mentioned before, I was a personal assistant for one of my first jobs out of college, and I was really good at it. I really liked it. It was really fun. And I did have a thought of like, oh, I could just do this, you know? But then I realized also, like, just because you're really good at something doesn't mean that like you have to keep doing it as your career. And I think that was an important moment for me, and important work that we do with our clients. Like, a lot of them are really good accountants, you know, or they're really good lawyers. And just because you're good at something doesn't mean you have to do it. Like, you can be good at other things. And for me, I decided like, yeah, like, it's super fun work. I want something a little more intellectually stimulating. Yeah. You know?
Thinking about these people, I think the early career thing makes so much sense, and I'm extra fascinated by those mid-career people because they have a sunk cost, they have a life, they probably maybe even have a family and bills and whatnot. And even talking through that concept of identity and the fear associated with change and whatnot, what do you feel like it really takes for someone to commit? Because if I'm 10 years into my career and I'm going to switch from finance to a creative field, what do you think are the biggest obstacles people have to reconcile to even be willing to not just commit but be successful in that transition? Because it's obviously quite a hard thing to do mid-career.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the bigger changes are harder, but we've seen people be really successful with them if they think of it more of like a pivot than like a huge career change right off the bat.
Yeah.
So we try to coach people on doing more conservative changes first, because we're very like financially aware, and we want people to not, you know, wreck their whole lives doing these changes.
Right.
So more incremental changes, and a lot of the work that we do with people is strategic. So I'm thinking of a client who, he was really into fitness. He was doing personal training, loved it. And then it didn't work for his life anymore. He got a little bit older. He wanted to do something less physical. He was working a lot of like nights and weekends. It wasn't a good fit for him anymore. Like he wanted, you know, maybe to move on and, you know, have a family and things like that. So he came to us, loved it. It was great for a while. Need to make a change, need to make more money, whatever. And worked with him. His results came out to like, he basically was trying to choose between becoming a doctor or doing something more in like software development, like that kind of a zone.
Wow.
Which are interesting because they actually share a lot of similarities,
Yeah.
right? They're
How
like
your brain
very
works.
investigative, analytic type of work.
Yeah.
One required a lot of school, the other one required less school, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway, he ended up going like more the tech route, and what we helped him to do was like, okay, like how are we gonna market you for this? Like you have trainer. You went to some school to get some more education, like computer science or something like that, and now you're looking for a job. So like, how are we gonna market you? And he and his coach worked together, and they decided he was going to try to work for like a tech fitness company to try to like use the work that he's done before and build off of that and make more of like a micro change, even though he actually didn't want to work in fitness anymore. He really wanted to work in like education tech. But it's like, okay, let's just make small changes here. Let's do incremental, and then you can get there maybe 2 jobs from now.
Yeah, I love that. I fully believe in that same core thesis, which is things don't have to be black and white, and if you can get a few % closer to the thing with each jump, like have that big vision, like you mentioned, you found as a teenager, what's this vision for my life, and iterating on it as we get older. But I think that's totally it. It doesn't have to be vision or bust. Like don't settle long term, but also if you can get something that even, I'm hybrid instead of in office now. Well, I have a few days back where I can, you know, work on the thing a little bit. So I love that. And I know quite a few. I have a lot of friends in Austin who were going for like the fitness influencer thing and now are doing remote sales and other things because exact same just, you know, like life change situation.
It's funny, when I graduated from college, I was interested in psychology, but I couldn't get a job in psychology. I wanted to be a family therapist at the time. And the way that I got my first personal assistant job was I was just looking for stuff where I could work with families. Yeah. And I found an ad for a family office. And I was like, I don't know what that is, but I guess I'd be working with a family. You know, so it was like very incremental. And I did work with, I was a personal assistant to a family. So I did get to work with a family. But that was like a incremental moment of like, okay, let me see what this is like to work with this family, even though it was totally not. I was not providing therapy. But it was an incremental move in the direction that I was curious about.
North Star was aligned. And I think that's really great advice too. I've never been a burn the boats guy personally, and like everyone's different, but I always find things go a lot better when I have a path of runway and I can not do or die mode. And even in that type of situation, I could see, okay, like work on a portfolio. If you run your own fitness company, great, like build an app for your company, and now that can be something you talk about. And I think that like moonlighting concept, or at least finding extra time to just slowly work on things, you can look up in 6 months and be like, oh, I actually have this very legitimate now carved out section of how I present myself.
Exactly. I think almost all clients, you can build off of what it is you were doing before and just sort of rephrase it or highlight different parts of it. Like if you were working in sales but you really want to be in marketing, it's like, okay, we'll work with a client and interview them and ask them, have you ever done anything remotely related to marketing? And they're like, well, yeah, this one time I did help the marketing team with this project. And I'm like, great. And I'm typing furiously. Like, what did you do? I'm making 3 bullets out of that one project, you know, and like, let's blow up the marketing bit. And people are like, you can do that?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah,
You don't have to just present it as overtly your perception.
You can
of
be
it.
creative and tell your story with a slant that favors the job that you want.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I don't know if this is the same thing as identity, but you mentioned professional image as a way to drive results. Is that separate from identity?
I think that it's more like the strategic part. So a lot of our work is, this kind of happens in a few parts. So like part A is like, okay, let's figure out what it is that you want to do. And then part B is, okay, how are we going to present you to the world so that they see you as this thing that you want to do that you might not have a ton of experience in.
Okay, got it.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's the professional image stuff is like, how, pretty much what we were just talking about, like how do we tell your story with an edge that gets you the job that you want?
Yeah.
Which a lot of people just have a really hard time thinking through how to do that. A lot of people write their job exactly as it was. If they did 50% of their time, doing sales, they'll write 50% of their bullets in sales, and they'll just do it so exact, which is fine. But I also think it just keeps getting you the same job that you had,
Yeah. I see it the exact same way, where it's like, in a perfect world, we change nothing. And if back's against the door and you've been trying this thing for 2 years, you're either going to keep doing this or you do have to change something. And it's just like, that's just how the world is these days. And I anytime I bring this up, I'm like, it's a gray area for sure to change the storytelling a little bit. But even for myself, that's exactly what I did when I was in my job search and felt stuck, was like, let me reverse engineer. Like, let me just look at the job posting of the thing I want. What does it say I should know? And look at 10 of those. Okay, now I have a good sense of that. So as a thought experiment, what would my resume need to say for me to be the perfect candidate for that? And what I think is fascinating, in the flip side of the coin, where it's actually, I think, a really great personal development exercise to do, is by figuring out the gaps between my junior product manager and my senior product manager resume. I wrote the perfect bullet points, but then I had to reverse engineer being able to talk about it.
How do I get there?
What does actually being the leader on the engineering team look like? Okay, I can write the bullet points, but I need to actually be able to articulate it. And I need to really think about, okay, maybe I was on that project, and what did my manager do? And let me put myself in her shoes, and let me look at her workflows. And you're kind of just absorbing the experience, and then voila, you're talking about it with confidence, and you actually know your stuff. And now, and it's not like a 2-day thing, but over 30 days.
Sometimes I have clients write your dream resume, write a few bullets that you haven't achieved yet, and what you'd like to write on your resume, and then we'll figure out how to get you that experience.
Yeah, exactly. And then that's just the kind of required nature of these systems these days. When there's 500 people applying, they're really only going to talk to the person who has that anyways. So that's fascinating. And I remember my other questions. So you were, we talked about these career assessments a little bit, and obviously I'm sure they're complex, but I'd be curious if there's any high-level frameworks of how these things work. Is it are there quadrants of, you're more analytical versus more creative, or how does, at a high level, how do these things work?
Yeah, the way I think about it is there's certain variables that matter the most for career decision making. So we've identified a whole bunch of those variables and the themes that they kind of live in. I'd say interests is a big one. What do you find interesting? Skills and education, of course. What actual experience, education, skills do you have? Personality is a big one. And that can live in a few different areas. Simple introvert, extrovert is a really simple one to look at. I can't tell you how many introverted salespeople come in and they're like, I took this job because the money was good, but I hate it. Yeah. And I can do it, but I need to sleep after,
That's me in a nutshell.
Yeah. And it's not every personality could do every job, but it's what feels good for you. Yeah. Or the extroverted computer programmer.
Right.
It's alone with their computer all day. Yeah. And they're like, God, this sucks. I just want to chat and work in a group and, Yeah. So personality is another one. Values, I think, is a really overlooked one. What matters to you and how does that change as you develop in your life? I mentioned that other guy before, there's a lot of people who take careers and jobs at a certain point in their life, and then things change. Yeah. And they value different things, or they care about different things, and not just family stuff. It could be, about the world and the environment, or maybe you cared a lot and now you don't care, or vice versa.
Yep.
So we see a lot of that shifting over time. And there's a few other ones like, like visa status, and that gets a little complicated with international people.
Yeah.
So that's like a whole other dimension of the work that we do. People who don't want to live in the U.S. anymore, like how do we get them out? So there's a lot of dimensions, but I'd say that those are some of the core ones.
It's very holistic. Yeah. In our program, the first thing we have people do is a career vision exercise, and we try to prevent any unfortunate, like, oh, I really like this thing, so let me double down on it, but also, cool, you like this thing now, but what do you envision your life 5, 10, 15, 20, 50 years from now? And you don't know for sure, but I do think when you look at the grand scheme of things, you can be a little more, you can see around corners a little bit. Okay, maybe I don't want the travel sales job sounds cool now, but if I think I'm about to have some kids in a week or in a year or two, maybe that's not the right path. Maybe I want to try to find something more flexible. So I like that a lot. Very cool. I'd be curious to know something that you guys have on your website, and it seems like you guys care quite a bit about, is social justice. What are you guys doing in that realm?
Yeah, so I would say that's one of the big things that I care about a lot. I've cared about it not my whole life. That would not be true. But I think since Columbia University is really amazing in their mental health program for teaching people about social justice. What does that mean? What does it mean to actually do that kind of work? People talk about it a lot, but I think that to actually make progress would mean like helping people who are marginalized, especially when it comes to race, like helping people of color, helping people also like queer identities, helping all the people that are systematically being not given the same opportunities because of their identities, right? Which kind of connects my interest in that area. And so one thing that I've been trying to do is trying to offer the same services that we offer for paid services to people who can't afford it. So we have donation-based services, which are all the same services that we offer they're delivered by an intern, so that's the only difference. So it's a trainee, someone who's getting a master's or Ph.D. in psychology.
That's cool.
And they're able to help us do the same services for donation-based, like pay what you can to do it. And that's just one way that we're trying to level the playing field. Because I felt pretty bad that like I really cared about this stuff. I started, doing this kind of work, and then I realized, wow, I'm just helping like rich white people get richer
and happier
and don't know if I'm actually doing any of the work that I really wanted to do. But then again, from a business perspective, like, okay, you need to actually charge money for your services to do anything about it. So we actually have a newly formed nonprofit that is doing handling all of our donation-based work, which is called the Wanderlust Foundation for Workforce Development.
Okay, super cool. I love that. Yeah, props to you for finding that alignment, because I think it's easy to be idealistic, especially when you're younger, and especially as an entrepreneur, just the weight of running a business that is so unstable at any given moment, and just you kind of get into adult realities. It's very easy to detach from what maybe once was this idealistic vision, and now I'm just in this adult reality where I have employees, and I have myself, and I have a family, and I don't know what will happen a year or two from now. And that's cool you're able to see that and find a way to merge the two things together. I don't think I'd feel good about our work if we weren't doing that. That's really great. Just out of curiosity, because I have this business brain, and I'm always looking for sustainable ways to do similar things, not necessarily the exact same thing. But are the interns, are they volunteering their time for free, or?
So the way that mental health counseling and social work programs in the U.S. work is they're one of the only programs left that require you to do like an unpaid practicum
during your undergrad,
during your master's or PhD program.
Nice.
I think most universities have like outlawed this unpaid or internship for credit system, but that particular zone still does it. And I'm actually really grateful that they still do it, because we can give them supervision and hours with clients that give them the
Everyone
experience
actually wins
that they need to graduate. So they're not paid now, but I would like to, we're trying to get donations and stuff from companies and things like that so we can actually pay them.
Yeah.
Because I don't like that model.
Yeah.
So we don't have to pay them, but I want to pay them.
Yeah, yeah.
And donations.
In a way that's sustainable.
And grants and things like that will actually allow us to give
that's
them.
That's amazing.
Because they're working, it's 700 hours that they have to do to graduate. So
that's a lot.
It's not nothing.
Yeah.
So we're working on it.
Nice. That's cool. Well, that's amazing.
But becoming a nonprofit for that was a big part of like why we wanted to do that, is because then we can actually accept funds.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
That's super cool. Cool. So all this work goes into helping people identify what they want to pursue. How do you think about helping people make that a reality? Like once they have got clarity on the thing, whether it's stuff that you actually hold their hand or just orientation you provide them after, like what does that look like typically for people when they go out into the world?
So once they figure out what career they would like to do, which they can actually do pretty quickly with us, it's probably like a 2 or 3 week process to do the assessment. So it's actually relatively fast.
Yeah, that's good.
It's actually cool. It's funny, like all this stuff that's so jumbled up in your brain and you're like, I have no idea what I want. You do these assessments and then it comes out on paper and you're like, oh yeah.
Yeah, it's like a menu.
Oh, yeah.
You're ordering at a restaurant.
And it just feels really aligned and it feels really easy. So that part's actually way easier than it seems. And then we do the professional branding where we're like, okay, great. You want to do this. Let's get all of your LinkedIn, your resume, everything aligned so that you can actually get the job that you want. And you have the materials targeted for that. And then the third part is the hardest part, which is actually going out and looking for the jobs, which I think is where a lot of people get stuck. So we have career coaches that are helping people hold them accountable, helping them with diversifying their job search, doing a lot of this work on their own. And that's why I found your business so interesting, is because I think this is one of the places that people get really stuck. They're doing their job search, they've got their spreadsheet, they're applying, they're doing the work. We're coaching them on how to apply outside of the system as well, like, sending out unsolicited resumes, reaching out to companies of interest. We actually have a lot of clients get jobs that way.
Nice.
Reaching out to unposted jobs.
Yeah.
Coming up with different ideas that are not just click and apply.
Right.
So that's
Backdoor
a lot of
method.
a lot of our coaching's around that.
Nice. What do you see? I feel like anyone listening, even if they're doing their own job search, would get value from this. Of the people who, sure, everyone has clarity, of what are the commonalities of the people who succeed versus struggle in finding that next job?
I think a lot of people struggle with like making the job search a job, right? Like, and I get it. It's exhausting, right? Like if you have a job, you're working all day and then you have your just few hours at night and it's like, oh, am I going to spend that applying to jobs? Like it's so labor intensive, right? So I think that's part of it. It's just like the dedication to doing the work. I think the people, and it's also a background too, I think the people who are really successful are people who have a great resume, they're great at interviewing, like they get snatched up pretty quickly even in a tough market. I think a lot of our clients we have those clients and they're super easy to work with. A lot of the clients are more like the average person. Like, okay, I'm an average person, I went to an average university, I have pretty good skills, and we work with them to try to supercharge their resume and make them look really, really great.
Yeah, 100%.
And then coach them on interviewing, like how do you, because they're just a little rough around the edges and they're actually great underneath it all, but they're not presenting themselves as great.
Yeah. 100%. Which is the unfortunate reality of the game. It is such a game. It's not just, it's almost heartbreaking the amount of people who have insanely good experience, even big names on their resume, but they're just not
presenting.
They just, even if it's I don't have the right couple keywords in my resume, I forgot to put one specific word in my resume, and no one's gonna talk to me because of that. So
that's a lot of what we do is like we're just trying to like shine them up, make them look really good, so they can get what they deserve. Yeah,
that's amazing. Yeah, I do feel like it's that consistency. It's almost like a grit component, even though it sucks. Like it does so suck. I remember when in my most recent job search, which was now quite a while ago, I think I got to the final round maybe like 10 times. And once you're that deep in it, it's not even about you. It's just the fact that there was that one person inches better than you, which makes so much sense why it'd be beneficial to have someone who's not just like a strategist, but also a counselor to support you through that.
There's a lot of mental health stuff there, and a lot of disappointment. And a lot of times at that phase, it's like, it's little tiny things that like you couldn't control. It's like, oh, well, they were actually going to hire internally anyway.
Yeah.
You know.
Do you have any tools or tricks or just recommendations or just things you see people do well who end up being more resilient, whether it's like, making sure they're actually acknowledging certain pieces of it as wins and not just all losses, or
it's so funny,
self-care or whatever?
I've noticed gender is a really interesting component. I've noticed that women tend to be really resilient and bounce back from this stuff more than the men.
Wow, interesting.
And I think this is my hypothesis. I think it's because of like the pressure that's put on men to succeed, to be a breadwinner, to be everything. And if they don't have a job and are looking, or they're looking to change, I feel like the loss is felt much more deeply mentally, and it's like a bigger loss. Yeah. Whereas women traditionally aren't expected to do all that much, which sounds bad. Really interesting. But historically, so I feel like when they have a loss, they're just like, on to the next, and some of the men are more, they take it harder, and it takes them longer to recover from it. That
makes sense. It makes total sense. I've never thought about it that way, but the psychological pressure you're putting on yourself will make everything harder, and you get in your own head about it, especially if you are a provider and you have a partner. They probably aren't even thinking down on you, but you might have that in your head that, oh, my wife is now not seeing me the same. Or I failed.
Women with career tend to have a less of a mentality around that because it's just been less, they've been socialized less that way.
That's interesting. Very cool. Okay, well, that's awesome. Kind of a leading question, but why would someone want to work with someone who can provide both the counseling and the coaching aspect versus just a run-of-the-mill career coach?
Yeah, so a lot of career coaching is unlicensed. Anyone can become a career coach. A lot of career coaches are people who worked in HR or something like that. And I'm sure there's plenty of great career coaches who don't have a mental health counseling background. However, there's so much stuff that comes up that's related, and I appreciate, at least I have a business coach who I really enjoy working with. However, I would say she doesn't have mental health training. And I've worked with a few. This is one I'm thinking of. And, we'd be going through a spreadsheet, and like the anxiety would rise and like the tears would come because I have all this like psychological stuff about numbers and math and me being bad at math, and like all this stuff's coming up, and the tears are welling in my eyes, and I feel so overwhelmed. And she's just like, when you're done with this, let me know, and we can move on.
Oh my gosh.
And she's kind of like a tough lady.
Yeah.
But in that moment, I think it would be super cool if someone was like, hey, what's going on for you? Let's talk about this. Let's take a beat. Let's explore this a little bit, and had like a bit of a softer edge. And I think the same is true for career stuff. I've worked with people who, I remember specifically, and she was an architect, didn't want to be an architect anymore, and we're sharing a screen, and I'm like looking at her resume like, okay, I'm just going to delete your architecture license because you want to become a product manager, and I just think it's distracting, so let's delete this. Delete, tears, sobbing.
I have to say I'm guilty of doing that a time or two, and I learned my lesson. I gotta slow down.
Like, let's talk about this, and it comes out all the years and the struggle and the money, and then and to delete this off her resume was like a huge emotional thing, so that had to be worked through. So I think, and same like with the men, like when they're getting rejected, then they start talking about dating, and the rejections they're getting, it's like it all kind of comes together, and they all influence each other, right? So if we can get over getting rejected at work, you can also apply that to some of your experiences with dating, and it all blends together.
It's all your identity at the core.
Exactly.
That's really cool. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. Last couple questions for you, really shifting from what you're doing currently to, the world's obviously a pretty crazy place. We had a little bit of a conversation about this before, and I'm sure everyone, at least a little corner of their brain, is thinking about, wow, the world is changing pretty drastically. AI's here. There's all these doom and gloom headlines. What's your take on the next roughly 5 to 10 years of, or even if it's 5 years, because 10 years, I don't know if anyone has a good pulse on it, but what do you think the next several years is going to look like in terms of like our economy, or even just the ability to work, our relationship with work, those things?
Yeah, I have a few thoughts on it. And like everyone else has been saying, like nobody knows for sure. We can just give our best guesses. But I have seen already people coming into our organization whose jobs have been lost to AI. It's really interesting. Like, I had a guy the other day who was a photo editor, and he's like, it's gone. Nobody does that anymore. Computers do it, and they do it better, and they do it faster, and that was his whole resume.
Yeah.
Like, that's everything, So he came in saying, like, I need to do a change, started doing the assessment, professional branding, all that kind of stuff. And for people like him, a lot of the advice is like, okay, it's not like you have to start from zero. There's still someone who has to work with the computers, work with the AI, someone who needs to understand that. So that's become more of our recommendation to the people who are losing their jobs to AI, is like, okay, like how do you rebrand yourself as someone who is aligned with AI and knows how to use AI to do this job even better?
Yeah.
Like we had some people who are working in like content development. We're kind of rebranding them more to like content strategy.
Huge field.
Using
everyone
AI.
Everyone and their mom wants a personal brand, and every one of those brands could benefit from a content strategy.
So a lot of the work that we're doing with those people who are losing their jobs is how do we rebrand you for this new age, and how do we use the assessment to figure out like what's an adjacent kind of job that you could do and upskill, so that you can get that kind of job. So that's one thing we're seeing. Definitely the job losses are real, but the rebranding is something that's very, very possible and easy to do, if you're willing to put in the work and educate yourself a little bit, because it does require new skills.
Yeah.
I do see it coming in like droves, right? So we've seen kind of some of the first few droves of losses. I think some of the next ones are going to come in soon. A lot of the basic developer types have been coming in. I personally think sales is gonna come for sales soon, just because I've seen like how wonderfully these chatbots can respond to sales inquiries. However, I also think it's like I think we have some time, because people, I'm a millennial, we aren't totally used to AI yet, and like to buy like a large ticket item through an AI bot, we might still need to talk to someone for a few years. So I think we have some time. However, my 70-something-year-old parents are chat GPTing away. They figured out how to use it for interior design of their houses and getting mock-ups and asking medical questions. So I say that, but then I'm like, God, people are adapting pretty fast.
Yeah.
So don't know what the timeline is exactly, but I think we have a few years of lag before it intensifies. For
sure. Yeah, I agree with that. It's like there's these use cases that get proven out and then are very disruptive, like the image and video. Like image done.
Yeah.
Like, you could do anything you want perfectly in 2 seconds. So yeah.
However, I will say, I have noticed that AI doesn't have great taste. So my sister-in-law, she's a graphic designer, and she just has amazing, cool style, cool taste. And I told her the other day, I think you might always have a job, because you have something that's so intangible that I don't know if an AI is ever going to get, like, what's cool and stylish. And she was saying, I don't know, they're getting pretty good.
Yeah.
And she thinks that in a few years they'll have taste as well. But I don't know. I think there are certain things that I'm like, I wonder if that's so human that a computer can't do it.
Yeah. Time will tell, right? I think, it's interesting. For the foreseeable future, I agree that I would assume she'd be safe as well, because the way I look at it, it's like these businesses, like if I'm running my own business, especially if you're more than, just a small mom and pop thing, it's like you want content done well. Like I would much rather pay a decent amount of money for it to be done well. You might need 10 clients instead of 2 clients based on like what the economics of it are.
Yeah.
But even this woman, it's like, okay, maybe even if her AI is now the one with taste, like how does the business owner articulate? They don't know how to articulate the style, and like I want this font, and you're only ever going to get, at least as of now, you're only going to get it as good as you can articulate what you need. So if you're that middle ground, I think that makes a lot of sense. So as you were talking about that initial man who is needing to rebrand, and I totally agree that right now there's that opportunity, and there's still the jobs are kind of moving up the ladder. It's like the bottom stuff getting washed out. You just got to shift. But I think especially to our topic of identity, I'd be curious to read your thoughts on this, because to me, it's like there's a strategy component, but to me, the more important part is what identity are you going to choose in relation to this? And one thing I heard on a podcast was like, if you just decide you're going to be the person who's adaptable, you'll figure it out. And it's like, if you see yourself as scared and kind of fragile, and I do this one thing, but if you just decide and show to yourself that you're that person that has been able to redefine and figure things out and being a lifelong learner, you're probably going to be completely fine. Like there's always going to be a problem you can solve and get paid for it, no matter what evolution's happening.
Yeah, and people have said that too, like, oh, there's going to be this many new jobs created that we can't even conceive of, which is exactly what happened with the internet. Like there was no SEO optimization specialist. So there's going to be new jobs that present themselves, and that might really hit. And we're doing that with our, assessment too. We're making sure that we're staying up to date on all the new jobs that are coming in.
That's good.
Like some really cool ones, like AI ethics. Like there's just really cool stuff that's being generated too. So yes, there's a lot of doom and gloom, but there's also some new opportunities that could be a better fit for you than anything that existed before. And I also think that there's such like a amazing opening for all the arts. Like, I don't know about other people, but AI art I find really boring.
Yeah.
Like I find it so amazing when someone writes a book just from their head. Like that's amazing. Yeah. Or they paint something with imperfection. Like I think that's amazing. And I wonder if the world is going to go more to valuing some of that stuff even higher, because it's made from humans.
Yeah.
And same with like relationship-based work. Like, gosh, it feels good to sit in a room with a person like this and have a conversation that's not on Zoom. I really think that might become like monetized, as sad as that is to say.
Yeah.
But you've heard of this, like meetup groups and things like that.
Yeah. Like experiences, everyone's investing in, like, even big people who have online brands are doing a ton of in-person events. And it's so hard to, I feel like we're entering a world where it's so hard to build trust online. Like you used to be, that's like an influencer, they sell business coaching. Now it's like, is that even a real person? Like, I don't even know if that's real. So it seems like we're going to enter this crazy, weird world where, unless it's in person, you don't even know what's what.
Yeah, exactly.
But I love that. Well, Dr. Katherine, we're so glad you're here, and thank you so much for breaking down not just how you're supporting people in your careers, but how we can bring that mental health component into it. It's been a really great conversation.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.